Welcome to another in the series of video trainings for the WiscWeb service. These videos are talking specifically about the beginner's WordPress using the UW theme courses. In this course, we're going to talk about creating menus. We're going to talk about setting your homepage, and we'll just briefly introduce what the media library is. The media library is pretty straightforward, so it doesn't require a great amount of discussion there. So in the previous videos, we have talked about some of the setup options that you have in regards to your site, the customizer area, such as your site title, your footer, things like that. In the previous video, we talked about how do you create content, how do you create pages, how do you create posts, how do you put some things on those pages using those posts. So in this one, the first thing that we're going to touch on is how do you define what your homepage is? So by default, if I were to hover my mouse over my site title up here, and if I click on the visit site, I'm going to go ahead and right click on it actually and open this in a new tab so that I can have two open at the same time. You'll notice that the default landing page for a WordPress site and for a UW theme site is this master post list. So you could be building a number of pages out and not realize that you haven't yet set the home page. So one of the things that you need to do as you're building out your new site is you have to define what is going to be the home page, what is going to be the landing page for the site that that your audience is going to see when they visit whatever your URL is going to be. So to do that, back over here on the Edit tab, I'm going to hover my mouse over Appearance, and I'm going to click on Customize. Once that loads, here's that Customizer menu over here on the left, and we're going to choose Homepage Settings. So again, you can see in here, you have two options. You have your latest posts, which is what the default is, and this is what it is right now. Or you can set a static page. And again, now you get the option to set what you want your homepage to be. So if I click on that drop down, I can choose any one of these pages that I have published. And again, it's very important to point out, your pages must be published if you are going to use one of them to set as your static homepage. So I'm going to go ahead and choose this undergraduate admissions one. It's the first one I was building in the previous video. And so I have that set, and now I can click Publish. And you'll see that it does say Published. And to just test my handiwork, I'm going to click back on over here to the Preview tab, the live view of my site. And I'm just going to refresh it. I'll click on the banner text up here. And you can see that now my homepage is set. That is how you set your static homepage. Pretty straightforward, but it is a very important step. Also note that with this option, you have the ability to change your homepage on the fly. So if you need to, you can come in here and set a different page to be your homepage. Now, if you're going to be switching home pages on a somewhat regular basis, there's some other conversation that we would want to have with you in regards to how to make those pages no longer visible so that they're not picked up in search engines, so that you can make sure that the right pages are being pulled when people search for your site. But this is how you can do it on the fly if you so desire. So once I'm done in here, I can go ahead and click back on over to the customizer menu here. There's nothing else that needs to be done in here specifically, but again, just a reminder that this is how you get to your customizer after the fact. You can click on, or you can hover your mouse over Appearance and then click on Customize out of there. So now what we're going to talk about is how do you build menus. And for menus, I'm just going to go ahead and grab our site again, and there is our WiscWeb main page. So menus are the way that you are going to move your audience through your site and how you're going to get them to the content that you think is important. So again, we just set the home page. So your home page will have introduction, a general overview of who you are, what you offer, what you're doing, why your audience should dig a little bit deeper into your site. But the menu is how people are going to actually move through and get to the various content that you are going to be providing to them. So to create menus, access your menus, you would again hover your mouse over Appearance and you would click on Menus. Now, this is what it looks like when you do not have any menus yet created. When you do create menus, you will default into a menu on this page, as well as have a selector right up here to choose between the different menus. We'll see this in a minute once we start creating our first menu. But in this case, we are creating a brand new menu, so we're going to go ahead and give this a name. And I'm going to be pretty straightforward here, and just I want to create my main menu, so I'm going to type in that for the menu name, and I'm going to click Create Menu. So now once it loads, I have a few other options down here at the bottom. The first one is this Auto Add Pages option. This is an option that you could select if you wanted to automatically add any new pages that you create into this menu so that it would automatically populate the menu. Now, this is an option that is a little dangerous because if you choose this option, it's just going to keep adding pages that you create as part of this menu, and you only have so much space to actually place a menu up here. And so the more you add up here, it's going to wrap, and it's not going to be a very good user experience. It's not going to be very usable for your audience. So you want to make sure that if you're going to choose this, you only have a limited number of pages that you're going to have within your site. Now, that's usually not the case for a number of sites that that are created. A lot of times you're going to have double-digit pages because you have a lot of content that you're providing to your audience. So just be aware of that caution when looking at this particular value. And then secondly, you have the option to set one of the two default display locations within the UW theme. And those two default display locations are the main menu, which is this menu that goes across the top of the page, and then the utility links menu, which is the menu that goes up here in the upper right corner. So you have two default locations, but menus can appear in other areas as well. You can use some on-page navigation. So this is a menu right here that is used for on-page navigation. Same idea here. This is a menu within our features and page elements area. And then we talked about in the first video a footer menu as well. So you have some other options to use for menus. We'll touch on a couple of those as we move through this. But just be aware of the fact that these are the two default locations. You can choose one of those two default locations. But if you don't choose one of these, you have to manually add this menu on a page or in a section of your site. So again, pretty obvious, I'm choosing main menu because I am creating my main menu. And now over here on the left, this is where you can actually choose the items that you want to make available to your menu. So in this case, I'm just going to choose these three pre-created pages for my site. Once I have them selected, I can click Add to Menu. There they are. If I need to reorder these, it's as easy as just dragging and dropping. So I'll put them in this particular order right here. If I needed to rename any of these, I could click on the little drop down and change the label. So instead of it being sample page, maybe I just want it to say sample. And now once I'm done adding or editing this particular menu, I can click Save Menu. It has been set. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop back on over to my live view of my site, and I'm going to again refresh it, and there is my menu. So that is pretty straightforward how you create menus within the UW theme and within WordPress specifically. So the next thing to touch on is how do you generate these drop-down menus. So there are a couple of ways to do that. I'm going to show you first the way to do it directly out of the menus area. So if you go back over to your menus tab, your editing tab here, the thing that you need to be aware of is that when you click on one of these, you'll notice down in the bottom, down here in this corner, when you mouse over it, there is that particular URL with the hashtag or the pound sign at the end of it. So what this is it is a label that has been created out of the menus area that doesn't go anywhere. It just is set there to activate the menu that exists beneath it. So to create that label, you would, in your menus area, expand the custom links section. In the URL field, this is where that hashtag or pound sign would appear. And then in the link text, this is where that actual value goes, that label that you want people to be able to click on. So, in this case, maybe I want it to be, admissions. And I will click Add to Menu. All right, so now it's in my menu area. I can drag and drop it as I see fit. I'm going to add a couple of more copies of these pages here so that I can move things around. So once I have my custom link here, my label value right there, I can drag and drop, and you can kind of see how that offset dash line is. That is making these two items sub-items of this particular value. So you can see now I have this menu value in place. I can click Save Menu. I can again pop out to my live site, refresh, and there is how I have created that dropdown. So it's important to point out the first way of doing this is adding that custom link with the label and the hashtag value, because what happens is, now if I go back over to here and I click on page 2, page 2 is obviously a page that I have created. Page 3, page, sample page, page. But if I were to pull, for example, page 3 underneath page 2 here and make that a drop down item for page 2, and refresh, this is no longer a clickable link, and this is just a function of the theme. It's a function of making these a little more mobile accessible. So you just need to be aware of the fact that when you do this, you lose this ability. The page still exists. I can go to it right there, but it is not something that can be clicked on up here. So you just need to be aware of that fact when you are building out your menus. You don't need to create a create a page when you're only going to use that page as part of the dropdown. You can just instead use the custom links area for that. So another thing about the custom links, you can also use this to add external links if you wanted to. So if I wanted to link to, say, the housing site, I can just type in, I think I need the dubs. I can just put that in there, click Add to Menu. I can use that as an external link. There are a few other options over here, but mostly you're going to be linking straight to pages or creating custom links to link to those. So again, just kind of take a look at what I did there. That'll take me out to university housing. Looks good. Links are all where I want them to be. So that's how you create menus, and that's how you apply the menu to the page, to the main menu area, I should say. So the two other means of delivering menus that we're going to specifically talk about in this video is how do you set your footer menu and how do you create on-page navigation. So first and foremost, we need to create a new menu because we're going to put a different menu into those areas. So this is saved. I'm just going to save again just for safety. And then I'm going to click on Create a New Menu up here at the top. And I'm just going to call this Quick Links. And you can call this anything that you want it to, but I will point out why the title is important in one aspect, but also you want to make sure that you're using good titling. You want to make sure that the menu title makes sense to you, to other editors, and then in a second you'll see why it would need to make sense to your external audience as well. So I have my menu name set. I will click Create Menu. Nothing too exciting here. I'm just going to add these 3 pages to the menu and just reorder that one right there. I'm going to leave everything unchecked because I'm actually going to be the one putting this where I want it to be. I don't need the theme to define where it's going to go. I'm going to define where it's going to go. So I'm going to click Save Menu now. And the first place that we're going to put this is in the footer. And we're already in the appearance area, so I just need to click on Customize over here on the left. And again, I'm putting it in the footer, so obviously I need to click on footer over here on the left. And I'll scroll on down. And if you remember in the first training video, there was no option here for us to click on this drop down. But now that we have created a couple menus, we do get the option here for these. So I'm going to click on the quick links one right there. I'll also put the main menu in the footer just to kind of point something out in regards to consistency there. So I will click on publish now. I have added my two menus and put them down there. I will publish. Click back on over to here and click on here to refresh, and I will scroll down, and there you'll see, first thing I want to point out again is the menu title. It took the name of the menu that I created and applied that as the header value down in the footer there. So you just want to make sure you're using a good title down there, because one, you don't need to say footer menu because that's a bit redundant. It's in the footer. It is obviously a footer menu. So just give it a more relevant title down there. And then secondly, just to point out, when you are using drop-down menus in a menu other than in this top area right here, it creates this little gap between sections of the menu there, and that becomes a bit inconsistent with, say, this one right here if you were using two menus down there, but also with the way that the menu lays out itself. Also, if you're using the way that we had discussed earlier, which is using the hashtag as the sort of custom link value, if somebody were to click on that link, it would just take them back to the very top of the page that they're on, which would create some confusion there. So our recommendation would be to not use the drop downs anywhere other than this menu right here. So that is how you place the footer menu. It's again, everything that we sort of talk about is pretty straightforward. It's pretty easy to pick up on these things pretty quickly. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to actually put a menu on page. And one of the things that you need to be aware of is when you are logged into your WordPress dashboard area, you can actually navigate your site as you would, any website, but you have this bar up here that will appear. And when you land on a page that you see some changes that you want to make, you can simply click on Edit Page at the top to go back into the editing environment for that particular page. So now that I'm here, we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to remove this one column layout, and that's just because I'm going to put this menu into a two column layout. So I'm going to remove that by clicking on the minus sign. I'm going to add a two column content layout. And what I can do is I can click on this gear icon right here and I can change a couple of values. Now I could change the background color if I wanted to, but I'm not going to, because changing the background color creates some contrast issues as well, because some of the things within the theme are defined by the style of the theme. So if I change these colors, it's not going to change all the things that could appear within the actual content layout. So I'm just going to leave it as the default. I'm going to also give this a headline. And so I'm just going to say, menus are fun. And that's that. So down below there, you have the option to change the display value. Now the display value is important because you can see the default is 50/50, but you can change it left 60, right 40, or left 40, right 60. And we'll touch on why that's important in a second as well. But I'm going to go ahead and choose left 60, right 40. So down here in the page element areas and the actual content area that for these particular layouts, I'm going to click on add page element and just add a text block on the left and just type in some exciting information about this page. So just some text on the left. And then on the right side, I'm going to click on Add Page Element, and the element that you need to use to add a menu to a page is the Group of Links page element. So I'm going to click on that. This one, however, does not automatically take in the title of the menu that you created. So I'm still going to add that value there, but for this particular option, it is not required. It's not automatically populated. It's an option for you to add that particular headline value. And then to actually use the menu that I created, I need to click on the checkbox for Use Predefined Menu, yes. And then I get access to the menus that I have created. I can click on the quick links one that I have set right there. And if I scroll up and update, now that I've updated it, I can go ahead and you'll see right here, and you'll also see right up here, view page. So if I click on view page, there is the menu that I have placed on page. Here is the text that I have placed right there. And so one of the things that you have to be aware of is when you are using a multi-column layout, the way that it looks when it gets set down to, say, a mobile view is the leftmost item will stack first. So this is a decision point on your end as to whether or not you want menu on the left or content on the left, because it's going to matter when someone is viewing your page in a or viewing your site in a mobile device. So just be aware of the fact that leftmost items will stack first in the UW theme, and that's just simply the nature of how it works. So that's how you create menus. Not an overwhelming process, I think, but just be aware of just some of the intricacies that you need to be aware of to make sure that you're using them correctly. So I'm going to bounce back over here to my edit tab. I'm going to go ahead and click on the X right out of here. And the last thing to touch on is the media library proper. And the media library proper can be accessed by just clicking on media here on the left. Once you're in, you have a couple of options for views based on how you have been using it. So the default will be this grid thumbnail view. You can change that by clicking on the little list icon up here, which is what I ended up in because it was what I had last clicked on within this particular site. But you can also click directly on images to edit them. And then what you can do for your media library is it is drag and drop. So if you have an image to upload, you can drag it up and just drop it right in. Once it's in, I would recommend clicking right on it and doing two things right away. One, setting the alternative text. There, I've added some alt text, and then give it a title. So graduation photo 1. Now I can add in this other stuff if I so desire. I can change the caption, etc. I can read, or I can add the description there if I want to. But I've set these things now, so I don't have to worry about that at the time. And so that's it for this beginner series of training videos. Again, the first video covered some of the setup process using the customizer area, setting the site title, setting the footer information, things like that. The second video talked specifically about content creation and talking about pages and posts and some of the things you can do with those things. And then this video, we just touched on how do you set your homepage, how do you create menus and apply those menus, and then just a brief introduction to the media library. So we will be continuing on creating these videos and creating videos that are more specific to like various other things that you can do within the UW theme. But this is just the introductory, so look forward to more of these videos as we create them. As always, if you have any questions or if you would like to come in and get some additional help, you can contact us through our website, or you can pop into any one of our upcoming open labs where we have staff available to meet with you during that time. Thanks for watching.